All right, so speed playing. We've got to sort out technique. We also have to practice a lot. A lot of speed playing is just doing it over and over and over again, making sure that you're relaxed while you do it. And the speed will kind of naturally develop out of that. There's a few things that I think I really believe will help you with that. One of which is practicing in time, and practicing with articulation. So let's go a quick go over all of the technique things that you need to kind of store in your head to do this kind of practice. One is going to be holding your pick properly. So your pick should be supported on the corner of your finger down here. So not the side. If you put it on the side, you're going to try to torque this joint sideways, and it doesn't bend that way. And over the years, you'll just end up with arthritis and damage in this joint. The really important thing is you've got to get it on the corner here, so that when we do an upstroke and the tip is pushed on here, that joint will backflex like that. Okay? If it doesn't do that, you don't have the shock absorber, and you also don't have the ability to control the tip of your pick with these kind of movements. So we want to have our thumb and our pick on opposite sides to one another. All right? You don't want it lopsided where you do this kind of thing. All right, these are really common mistakes that people make. Okay, so after we've got that, we need to have it loose enough that you can wiggle it, but not so tight that you're crunching down on it, not so loose that you're going to drop the pick. The next thing to think about is your three basic wrist movements, so we'll just go over that again. So you got rotation. Rotation is where we turn our hand, which is actually a rotation of the radius and ulnar in the elbow socket. All right, then we have door knocker, which is where arms down, this movement. And then we have an extension and contraction of the radius and ulnar, this side-to-side movement, right? So here. Now, out of all of them, I think the last one, the extension contraction movement, is the one you really want to be going for almost all the time. Rotation will work fine. It works fine for people like gypsy jazz players who use it a lot. I used it for years. I ended up deciding to change off it because it tends to be great when you're moving in one direction. It can feel really, really, really good and very easy to have the sense of momentum because you're using these large angles. So like, rotational players tend to curve their wrist a fair amount. And they're using the whole weight of the hammer blow of their hand to get through a string. Right? Which makes it very powerful. And it's quite good when you're running up the neck. But when you need to turn around and come back down again, because it's such an extreme hand position, if you wanted to turn that around, you need to turn around all of that extreme hand position to get the reverse happening. And it's just too much. It's too slow to really flip around fast enough to do anything useful. At least it was for me. And I thought a picking style that is more in line with where you want to go, that is easier to hop over strings, and that also picks in line with the plane of the strings. You know, plane of the strings is this way. With rotational, we're doing this big scoop, trying to scoop the middle strings out more than the outsides. But with radius on the extension contraction, we're pretty much in line. So that's why I switched off. I think if you're going to pursue anything, I would pursue that one. Okay, so we've talked how to hold your pick, the motions you're supposed to use. Now we're going to talk about the fine details of how it comes onto the guitar. So we have two different types of slant or slope that's important. So I would call this slope, where we turn the pick, edge picking. And we always want to do some amount of edge picking. Flat picking is where we present the pick to the string completely flat. And it has a very particular sound. It's very, very kind of twangy. Most of the time, it's not going to be what you want. To get started, what you want to do is rotate your pick. All right? So that way, we always have this leading edge that we're running up. Like that. Right? That's going to help your pick come through the strings much easier. It's also going to give you a warmer sound. This is one of the ways that we could manipulate our tone on the guitar, is by rotating our pick more or less. The more we rotate our pick, the warmer the sound is going to be. The less we rotate it, the twangier it's going to be. The next thing we need to do, all right, so now we're trying to use this motion, we've got this on an angle. The next thing we need to do is worry about pick slant. So slant is where we roll the pick over the string. See how that's upright? We do that. That's called down slanting because we've moved our pick down. Moved our hand down, sorry. This way, our center of gravity from our hand is over the top of the string. And it actually helps pull us through the string. All right? There are some downsides. The more of a slant you use, the more you will have to reverse it when you then have to go to the other direction of resting your pick. That's neither here nor there. Like, you can get through that pretty easily with a bit of practice and kind of figuring out your own, what you like. Generally, people that start out will like to have more of an inclination because it puts more of the center of gravity over and pulls the pick through easier, and it feels like that's a little easier to get going. From there, you can kind of dial it back when you start going to two-way slanting to kind of find a happy medium where it's very easy to change between the two different slants. You need to rest all your downstrokes in this position. So the whole idea of having our hand in this position is that the gravity, the weight from our hand is naturally going to pull us towards that string and onto it. All right? So with all those things in mind, you want to start having a look at picking. So a pick stroke does not start on a string. Only economy picking strokes will start on a string. What we want to do before we pick is prepare the stroke, think about the tension in our hand, relax, and let the pick carry all the way through and rest onto the next string. Prepare, pick, prepare, pick. Now, the more you can relax, the more you can make your wrist feel just like a turning off motion, a dropping motion, the better. The easier you will be able to play, the faster you will be able to play. It's all about getting rid of this pushing tension that we think our hand needs to do. Later on, when you need to move extra fast, you can do little pushes and things. But the first goal is getting it to feel like your pick really moves through as effortlessly as possible. All right, so that's our downstroke. The next question is, what kind of exercises did I do in order to start dialing mine in? I hate exercises that aren't related to something you're actually going to use. I don't like the spider exercise or any of these things that do not get you to play musical scales. I think if you're going to do exercises, they may as well get you familiar with your scales as well. So I started with pentatonic scales to start dialing in my right hand technique. The good thing about pentatonic scales is there's only 2 notes per string, so we have a down and an up, all right? Every time we do a downstroke, we are trapped, we are stuck between the strings. When we do an upstroke, all right, we are free. So we can only really change string after an upstroke for now in this system. And that's good because pentatonics have 2 notes per string. So it's always going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. With the exception of, we will get all the way through a scale. Now if I want to turn around, I either need to double up on this note, or I need to come up a box position. Because if I don't, I'm going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then I need to hit the B string note here. I'm supposed to do an upstroke now. And if I'm down slanting, the upstroke's supposed to be free. So I'm down here on the fretboard, down here on the pick guard, and I have to leap over the E string, come back to the B string, then do an upstroke, then do a downstroke. Ah, damn, I'm trapped again. I'm sitting on the E string here. See if we can just get that camera angle a little better. Sitting on the E string here, and I need to do an upstroke on the next note. Damn, I've got to hop over the B, come back, do an upstroke, then a downstroke. Damn, I'm stuck again. Okay, so we can eliminate that problem in 2 ways. One of which is by adding an extra note on the top string. That way we go down, up, 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 down, one is fine. It is a good one to use. I don't like doubling up on the one note. To me, it sounds dodgy. And part of my whole ethos is, that's well and good, but it doesn't sound very musical, especially because of that doubling. So what I want to do is turn it into something that, sounds a little nicer. So one of the things I do with it is move it over 2 boxes, which gets you to practice a position change as well. And because we're doing it over 2 boxes, down, up, 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 down. So it works out perfectly fine. That is a really good exercise to do just generally. I'm pretty sure Mateus Asado does that by coming up his boxes. And that's a good one to start with too. That's really great for practicing on your scales, really great to get you to come up and down. So that alone, as a start of an exercise, is the start of fixing this right hand problem. We all have right hand problems. Generally, everyone's left hand is a little faster. In addition to all of that, so that's going to fix like the basic technique aspect of it. That's not necessarily going to make your phrasing better. I mean, it should do, because it will make it easier for you to play what you hear in your head. But what will really help your phrasing quite a lot, and your timing, is to practice subdivisions. I don't have anything I can put a metronome on with at the moment, but you say you might take a scale. We'll do that 2-box one I was doing, and think in a subdivision. If you give us the count, if I'm thinking triplets, I'm going to put an accent on 1 every 3. Now, hopefully through the phone and all the compression that happens, you can hear that there's quite a large difference between my accent notes and my quiet notes. My accent notes are quite loud, and my quiet notes are quite quiet. The thing I always say to classical guitarists is that the audience gets half of what you put in. You think you're being really emotive with your dynamics, and what it turns out to come out as a very small range. You need to think about your dynamics in a much larger range. So when you think quiet, make them really, 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 really quiet. When you think loud, make them really, 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 really loud. And it's in practicing the extremes, especially right next to each other, that you'll get a lot more control of your right hand. A good exercise that shows you whether or not you've got some problems with this is doing, I think we might have done it in class, the chromatic crawl. So you just do 12 semitones coming up today. All right? And then we choose a subdivision, right? So we're doing a triplets, and that's 3. We're going to choose fingers that are evens. If we did an odd timing number, we do even fingerings, and if we do an even timing number, we do odd fingerings. So with triplets and 2 fingers, we want to make sure we never repeat a finger. So it's always going to come up like this. We're never going to get an opportunity to go 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, nothing like that. Always alternating. And the pick accent's 1 in every 3. All right? 3, 4. Okay. Yakata, 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 da. You will probably find that will blow your mind. It will not work out. You'll want to probably put an accent here, or what you'll want to do is double up a finger so you can get a fingering that works in 3. Right? We don't want to do any of that. It immediately points out that most people will accent the first finger. And it's ridiculous. Your left-hand fingerings have nothing to do with what note is getting accented. That's all contained in the right hand. But because of the kind of the crosstalk in the way our brain works, we tend to want that first finger to be accented. So what we want to do is practice intentionally not accenting that finger, accenting all of the different fingers and separating out this process of what hand does the accents. So in your scale practice, and just pentatonics for now, you want to think of doing, I always say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, crotchets, quavers, semi-quavers, triplets, pentuplets and sextuplets. And you want to do them all with the metronome, and you want to make sure that all of them are getting the right kind of accent, and that it gets easier to count in them. Sometimes it can be fun to do exercises where, like, you give yourself a bar, and every bar you've got to change subdivision. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, I lost focus. I wasn't getting. But you get the idea, right? Right, so doing your accenting exercises like that, relaxing, making sure that you are resting your strokes, focusing heavily on moving at a comfortable speed that is a kind of a jogging pace. Where I really started to notice faults, right? I've always been pretty good at doing like a bit of a fast run. It was in sustaining it, right? Once I'd sorted out the two slant, right? So we'll have to have a quick chat about that two-way slanting. So we've just done the downslope, right? Two-way slanting means that the upstroke gets the opposite. So we're going to do this. Rest the upstroke, free stroke on the down. Right? All those upstrokes rest, the free stroke is the downstroke. If we combine those two, then what we end up with is something that we could actually cycle a single box in pentatonic with. We'd go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and rest it. Right? Then we go down, free, up, rest, 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 down, rest, up, free, down, rest, up, free, down, rest, up, free. And this allows us to do something which cycles, all right? Now you can do this with a single picking direction by doing the things we talked about earlier, either double up on that top note or do across two boxes. But what I really started to notice was that I couldn't perpetually play a pentatonic box just up and down. Right? I would get a couple of reps in, and I would fall over, or even at a medium pace, pretty slow pace like that one, right? And the things that let me dial that in was, one, that became a goal, was I want to be able to do this ad nauseum, all right? Like I want to be able to keep this going for literally as long as I want to. If I want to do that for a whole 10-minute song, I should be able to just start it on beat 1 and end it at the end of the song. So I used that, and I started analyzing what was going wrong. It was obviously not my left hand. It's something in my right hand. Initially, it was problems transitioning between the down and the upstroke. But there are lots of other things that come into play. How much of those angles you're using comes into play. All right, if you have a really extreme turned over pick slant, then you have to reverse that pretty much all the way in order to make it feel normal. That's not great. You need to have something which is reversible very quickly. There is even some talk, and I don't use this. I use a little bit of forearm rotation to change my pick slant. My uncle actually advises that what you do is use your thumb and finger like that to change pick slant. So that way the wrist motion stays identical. It's probably a fantastic idea. I just haven't really nailed it. Right, so the variables, how much of a turn you use, how much of a slant you use, and on top of that, how deep your pick tip sits in the strings. That is the number one thing that is going to really lag you up, is if there's too much pick tip going through, you will feel small shudders in your wrist every time you hit a string. You'll just feel this kind of moment of shock pass back into your wrist. And once that passes back into your wrist, it throws off your playing, especially at speed. It's just not going to really be able to be sustainable. So what you need to do is find the position that doesn't give you that friction anymore. And the only way I could figure out what that felt like, because I couldn't do it just doing once up and down a scale, was to do it on loop. and then take real notes about how I'm feeling fatigue. Does my wrist start to feel tired? How long did it take me to feel tired? At what tempo, right? And I started dialing it all in that way. The next thing I did, and if you got plenty of money spare, was buy a blue chip pick. I actually think that to sort out my picking technique, this pick was essential. Blue chip picks are really stupidly expensive. This one cost me $100 to get. I think the pick cost about $50. There's about $50 worth of postage. God knows why. Could have been done in an envelope. But they are made out of a special polyamide called Vespel. The really cool thing about them is they're essentially frictionless against your strings. Once I grabbed this pick, and I was using the vegan picks, and you might have seen them, about that long, fairly narrow width-wise with holes drilled in them, Wedgen or vegan. I mean, it's a Dutch company, so it should be V. What I found, though, was that the pick itself, the plastic itself, as it would wear, would have a certain amount of grip on the string. And I was having a hard time determining if it was pick tip, if it was just the pick, if it was just my wrist, am I tensing up? When I got this pick and I felt it on the strings and it just felt completely frictionless, I knew immediately where the problem was. It was in my wrist. I wasn't relaxing, I wasn't letting go, and it let me troubleshoot it. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that you need to go out and buy yourself a blue chip, but what I would suggest is that you have a couple of picks on hand. Make sure you get some that are really smooth. Obviously, you shouldn't use a pick. You can bend it. It has to be, I recommend 2 mil. Make sure you get something that is really smooth and really slips on those strings very easily. The shape of the point of your pick is fairly important too. Too pointy will give you a very bright and aggressive sound, but the point itself feels like it catches the string. Whereas something that has... actually the camera is not really portraying that very well at all. A bit of a tip, it's not pointy, I would say, but it has a tip on it, is probably the healthy middle ground of where you want to be. If it's too round, that can feel quite nice, especially if you are used to sticking too much pick in, because the roundness of it kind of acts as a way of gently pulling your hand back out of the strings. They also sound different too. The rounder your pick tip is, the jazzier your sound will be. It'll be mellower. That might be something you like for tonal reasons, and that's a good reason to like something. I would never change your pick. You always want to be choosing your pick based off how it sounds and how it feels, rather than I can't play with a different pick. There's a lot of people who like thin picks who, I can't play with those thick picks. And thin picks are just terrible. They take all the energy out of your picking motion. You can only get a soft sound out of them. You can never get a hard sound out of them. And they make it so it's almost impossible for you to find which string you're on. So something thick, something smooth. If you have spare cash, I think you should buy a blue chip. I'm a total convert. I only have this one, and there are some panic moments where I think I've lost it. But I don't think I'm going to play on another pick. I might have to buy some more of this, or I might have to buy some Vespel and start machining my own. All right, that's some of your picking stuff. So remember, think about which motion you use. Constantly analyze yourself. Constantly think about it. Watch yourself. Record yourself and watch yourself play. It's unbelievably valuable. Even if the zoom in is just on your hand. Sometimes that's better because you can really see what's going on there. And it's quite often easier to see if other people's playing, as in you on a camera, that's watching someone else essentially, than it is to kind of monitor it yourself looking down from here. So think about your wrist motions. Migrate to this radius and ulnar extension contraction. Try to eliminate any door knocker we see. That's never going to be helpful. Think about your angles. Start resting those downstrokes. Try to get it to feel as much like an exhale as possible. Work at jogging paces. Jogging paces are very good. Initially, you probably have to do some really slow stuff, but at a jogging pace, that's where we're going to feel fatigued after doing it for a little while. Not such a fast pace that we feel like we need to tense up and get it done, but beneath that speed. You want to be at a speed where you're thinking, like a jogging pace. You want to be not pushing yourself really hard, but you don't want it to be too easy. You need it to be at the stage that there is some movement happening. And that's because at that gap, at that transition point between walking and running, that's where you're going to start being able to have it slow enough that you can work on the problems, but fast enough that the problems will exist. Because what you will find is that when you go completely slow, unless you're extremely careful and practiced at controlling your body and your technique, the motions you use slow, at unbelievably slow paces, will not be the same motions that you use when you run. They can be, if you are really cognizant of your technique, of exactly how this pick is working, and you practice it extremely slowly. It is a fantastic way of developing muscle memory, but it requires a lot of dedication and control, and you have to be very practiced at analyzing and performing your technique. So, the next thing, if we need it anymore, obviously patterns. Patterns are really good for fixing your right hand technique. After you can kind of do this kind of basic up and down stuff, and you feel like you're getting a jogging pace going well, I don't know, 16ths at 90, let's say that. Then there are multiple paths for you to go down. One of which is you could do the traveling boxes thing, extend your range. You could do some pentatonic stuff where you start moving around the neck. Oh man, I can't do this while I'm on video. So what I'm doing there is using the skipper box method of movement. So I'm doing, that's in box 1. Then I'll hop over box 2 and jump into box 3. On the same string, hop over box 4, go to box 5. Right? That skipper box technique is a great way of fluidly moving up the strings without having to screw up your picking directions. If you do, the problem is I just ended on a downstroke, right? I've entered on a downstroke, I'm trapped against the D string, my next note's going to be on the D string. Either I have to economy pick my way through it, which is something I think you should work on later, or I need to pick my pick up, go jump over it, do an upstroke, right? All of the same problems as always. Or pre-plan and do that last stroke as a free stroke. But then I'm in up slanting. So every time you switch it and you do that free stroke, you then have to switch to up slanting. Okay, so patterns are probably the next thing. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again, patterns of 2, patterns of 3, patterns of 4, patterns of 5, patterns of 6. I always think of them as ascending or descending. So a pattern of 3 that ascends, ascending 3s would be a set of 3s that go up, and then the next one also goes up. When we hit the top string, we've got an interesting question. Do we flip the pattern and come down 3? So we do descending 3s. Or do we keep the ascending part of the ascending 3s, but make them ascending descending 3s? So we go. All right, because that's really interesting. Because once you get that flowing, it's a really interesting kind of thing. So to have that would technically be the same pattern on the way up and down, right? Rather than what we would normally do, which is reverse the pattern. We can also do the descending ascending 3s. So we could take the lesson of the reverse path that we just learned and make each set of 3 go down, but the whole line go up. Right? Do the same with 4s, do the same with 5s, do the same with 6s. And what you will find is that each of them are going to pose interesting problems for you. In 3s, we've got down, picking problems, I mean. Down, up, down. Well, the next note is here. So immediately, full alternate picking is very difficult to do there. I'm still doing it, but what I'm doing is I'm planning a down free stroke there. I go down, up, down free, up, down, up, free. Right? So I'm going down, up, down free, up free, down rest, up free, down free, up rest, down right. So let's just zoom in on my picking hand. That'll be easier than me trying to explain it. So you can see there's this little moment where I'm doing rest, free, rest, rest, free, 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 rest, rest, free, free, right? As this kind of pattern where I'm getting these two free strokes next to each other, which is allowing me to turn around and pivot my lines. Every single one of these is going to pose interesting problems for you that you have to solve. And the answer is always going to be some variety of down slanting and up slanting. Getting the free strokes in the right place, getting the rest strokes in the right place. It's pretty intuitive. We can work on it in more detail as you kind of go through. And I've just got your email over here. So it's probably way more than enough to start going on. Okay, so there's two other points that I wanted to touch on. One of which is that you say, your practice is a bit all over the place. That has to change. It's a complicated topic for me to discuss because I have a pretty nebulous way of practicing. Like, the way I think about practice is that I have all these concepts that I know I want to work on, and I can work on a different exercise each day inside of those concepts. With a bit of overlap. Like, obviously you want to do some exercises multiple times in order to get better at doing those things, internalize them better. But I'm always working on certain things. So like a lot of these picking things are things that I think about and work on a fair amount during my practice. These days, quite often, it's very subconscious. I don't have to be too mentally present with it. I just have to keep track of how my hands feel while I'm practicing. So I might do this while I'm, watching TV, and I might just run various scales, or hell, sometimes I even do some fairly melodic kind of things. Right? Everything I do these days, I'm always working on a chord progression. I'm always trying to find some kind of chord note. And I'm always monitoring the tension in my body. So you also talk about here, on the practice thing, so that means that you're going to have to just bite the bullet. You cannot play fast consistently unless you do the exercise. I mean, you are definitely, you're already there. You have all the mental skills together. What you need to do is bring your body up to speed. And unfortunately, the only way that learns is through lots and lots and lots of repetition. So for a little while there, like while I was watching TV, I would run up and down a scale. Right, just coming up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. That was the period after I'd kind of sorted out the basic mechanics of it, and I just needed to work it in. I would pretty much do that most of the evening. Watching various kind of shows and things, and my guitar would be in my hands most of the time. I'd be barely paying attention to it other than just running it and getting the hours in. And it's an hours game. I've often said to people, like, if people can play fast, it just shows you how much less of a life they had in high school. Probably says some interesting things about me. But it's true, like, it's the amount of hours in, so you need to put those hours in. It's better if you can do that with a metronome. And it's better if you think about your accenting. The other thing you said here is phrasing. Well, all of those accenting things is really what's going to start. It's the exercise that is going to pull up your phrasing. On the phrasing note, I really, really hope that you could send me some improv, some things that you think are going together okay. Actually, honestly, it doesn't matter if you think they're going together okay, just some examples of it. Because that's going to be great to talk about some more specifics. But generally what phrasing is the ability to articulate a line as you hear it. I'm assuming that you have no problems hearing the articulation. I'm assuming that the problem is that you probably have a small trouble expressing them. So all of those accent exercises is exactly how you're going to be able to get used to that. Like drums, what makes drums cool is the difference in dynamics between loud notes and soft notes. And it's one of the things that beginner drummers always get wrong. Everything is always full volume. That's half the reason why they kind of sound like amateurs, is because there's no pulse, there's no interest in the dynamics. So practicing those kind of picking exercises will help with that. But to work on that more, send me some stuff. So your practice, your phrasing, speed. Speed is the kind of thing that you just kind of need to crack down and work on. Looking at your left hand,